Hey guys, what is going on? I hope this finds everyone well. I'm waiting to check out here and see, is this thing working? I am testing out some new software here that will allow me to go live on multiple platforms at once. And so I'm trying to see if this is working. I'm trying to, yes, seems like maybe somebody's watching here. Let's see. Is this working? Let me see. Yes, Jim McCarty is here. Jim, are you on YouTube or are you on Facebook? I'm streaming this on multiple platforms all at one time, and I'm just testing things out. If you can, leave me a comment because I can't tell where the comments are coming from. Jim is on YouTube. Yeah. Jim says nobody important though. And I don't even know if I can even tell. Oh, John, you're here. John, it's working on Facebook. Okay, so this is kind of working. I'm a tech retard, and so doing things like this is like a huge stretch for me. And I just want to test this. Literally, I'm just testing this stuff out. And I'll tell you kind of what this idea is that I have on. I'm thinking on Sundays. What time on Sundays, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking on Sundays of doing something that I call a tactical jam session, the IDS tactical jam session, where I just share some ideas, some training ideas, some personal protection ideas, things from ideas and concepts from my point of view. And then in return, those that are watching can share their thoughts and their ideas as well. I can ask questions of you guys to see what you guys think about certain things, and I can, and then you guys can ask questions of me. This is the whole idea, is to sort of turn this into a jam session, right? So we're just flowing where I'm not overly scripted about anything. I have some loose ideas and some concepts that I want to talk with you guys about, but we can turn this into kind of a synergetic thing. I love synergy. Also, having guests on. Now, I just want to let you guys know that I really don't have any interest in becoming a broadcaster. The idea of being a broadcaster doesn't turn me on. Uh, that might be kind of ironic given kind of what some of my background and some of the work that I do now, but I'm not interested in becoming a broadcaster. I'm interested in the exchange of ideas. I'm interested in forwarding concepts and the evolution of training and self-defense. I'm interested in the synergetic creation of a broadband deterrent to violence. That's what I'm interested in. So that's what the hope is around this. That's the whole idea. And I'm just doing this right now just so I can get a little bit familiar with this software and how it works. How's it working on your end? If you guys could leave me some comments, just let me know. How does this seem to be working? Does it seem to be working okay for you guys? I do have, how long will this jam sessions last? I don't know. As long as they need to last. Maybe it'll be 10, 20 minutes. Maybe it'll be 2 hours. We'll see how things are flowing. That's what a jam session is, right? Just get all of these musicians together in a room and we just start jamming, right? Maybe I'll lay down a beat, or I'll throw down a riff and you guys throw down a riff back, and we'll see what kind of beautiful music that we can create. That's the whole idea. Good. Thank you. So I have something here that I wanted to maybe. I didn't know. I didn't want to turn this into necessarily a jam session because it's just a test, right? But I had something. I'm like, I want to talk about something. At least throw out an idea about something that you can see that I have on the ticker here at the bottom. I says status quo bias sucks. I want to talk about the status quo bias and why I think it sucks. All right. And I want to have this conversation with you guys about why I think it sucks. Maybe you guys don't think it sucks. Oh, by the way, what do you guys think about? I've got this awesome new vest. It's a heated vest. It's like 29 degrees below zero here. Check this out. This cool electric heated vest. Let me tell you, it's awesome. It's cozy. Even outside when it's super cold, if I just have like a sweatshirt on, it's cool. All right, so let's talk about this. I've got two, to me, cognitive biases really fascinate me. Okay. They're bewildering to me, especially the Dunning-Kruger effect as a cognitive bias, but we'll get to that at another time. I just want to talk about this briefly. The first cognitive bias I want to talk about is tied to the status quo bias, but it's something that's slightly different. But I would like to hear from you guys and tell me what you guys think, because these two cognitive biases, from my point of view, are the single biggest problem with the training industry, firearms training, martial arts training industry, self-defense training industry, and people in general when it comes to these topics. Two names for the first one. Shared information bias is also known as the collective information sampling bias or common information bias. Here we go. The shared information bias is known as the tendency for group members to spend more time and energy discussing information that all members are already familiar with, and less time and energy discussing information that only some members are aware of or unshared information. Harmful consequences related to poor decision making can arise when the group does not have access to unshared information in order to make well-informed decisions. This, Lucas, what's up, buddy? Riley, what's up? This is a big frickin' deal. I'm trying to cut back on the F-bombs and trying to clean up my language, by the way. I'll be a work in progress. I'll read that again if you guys want me to, but I want to hear what your thoughts are. Now let me move on to the status quo bias, which to me correlates with this, but is kind of the cherry on top. Okay, it's kind of the cherry on top. And I'll circle back to these at another time after this test. Again, you guys, I'm thinking about doing this tactical jam session on Sundays. So I'm just getting familiar with this software and seeing how it works. Okay, so here we go. System justification bias, also known as the status quo bias, like I have in the ticker here. The status quo, I think the status quo bias sucks. Here we go. The status quo bias is the tendency to defend and bolster the status quo. Existing social, economic, and political arrangements tend to be preferred and alternatives disparaged, sometimes even at the expense of individual and collective self-interest. Let me see if I can, I think I made a ticker here, a banner that you guys can see. Let me see if I can turn this into a banner. Okay, this is edited a little bit. It's edited just a little bit, all right, because I couldn't fit, there's only so many characters I can fit on here, okay. This is the status quo bias, is the tendency to defend and bolster the status quo. Existing social, economic, and political arrangements tend to be preferred and alternatives disparaged, sometimes even at the expense of individual and collective self-interests. All right, so let's talk about this for a second. I want to hear what you guys think about this. But I mean, it's so complicated, right? Because we're talking about ego. We're talking about indoctrination, where people in the world of psychology is also known as a schema or a mental model. A schema or a mental model. At IDS, our goal is to, well, we stick with what we do. We're not gonna get outside of our lane in terms of what we do. We have a very specific kind of process and goals and ethos to what we're about. But by the same time, we want to eliminate the box. We want to eliminate this box. We want to eliminate the status quo. We don't even want to think outside of the box. We want to eliminate the box. Yeah, both are deep in many industries. Maybe all industries, maybe everything, right? This isn't just about our industry. Maybe it's about everything. It's unbelievably frustrating. And I'll tell you that people come in with preconceived ideas about the way things are or about the way that things should be. What's the answer to that? What's the answer to that? I think one thing that would help is to start calling things what they are. Start labeling. I know this is paradoxical, right? But start labeling things what they are. What would be some examples of that? Is marksmanship self-defense, or is it just a part of self-defense? Right. That's one thing. That's like saying a free throw is the game of basketball, right? That shooting is the game of basketball. It's not. It's one of my best friends is a high-level college basketball coach, and we've had this conversation. Been one of my best friends since we were 10 years old. And he estimates that in the totality of the game of basketball, that shooting is approximately 43% of the game. Okay. So if we go to a shooting course, a firearm shooting course, is that really self-defense, or is it just a part of self-defense? But that's what's implied, right? So then people develop this sort of false sense of confidence, and they believe that they know how to defend themselves when they don't. So instead of just calling it marksmanship, so instead of just calling it, something of what it actually is, they tie it all in together because it's better marketing that way. The downside to that is what? The downside is that could end up costing somebody their life because we haven't been intellectually honest about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And to me, that's sort of the big thrust, is intellectual honesty. I think it's time that the industry starts to embrace this concept of intellectual honesty. It's up to us in leadership, as people who own schools, as people who are instructors, as people who are leaders, for us to begin. I think people are afraid that they're not going to make enough money. They need to market themselves as something that they're not. But if my opinion is, if leadership starts to become intellectually honest, then everybody wins. Now we've set a new paradigm, so to speak. So let me read this. Let me read these just one more time. And I know this isn't sexy, but I don't know. I just thought, I'm like, this is the very first time I'm testing this out. And I just was like, oh, something I thought that we could talk about that I think is important. In the future, things will be more structured, and I'll have more for you, like in a more consumable way, right? In most cases. But let's talk about, let me just read this one more time. Shared information bias, also known as collective information bias or common information bias, is known as a tendency for group members to spend more time and energy discussing information that all members are already familiar with, and less time and energy discussing information that only some members are aware of. Harmful consequences related to poor decision making can arise when the group does not have access to unshared information in order to make a well-informed decision. That ties to me into the status quo bias, or the tendency to defend and bolster the status quo. Existing social, economic, and political arrangements tend to be preferred and alternatives disparaged, sometimes even at the expense of individual and collective self-interest. How are we ever going to grow and evolve and develop in this industry if we don't start thinking outside of these cognitive biases? Hi, Mariana. Darcy says, where are the tons of gyms claim to teach Muay Thai, but don't even spend time on clinches or throws. Yes, the marketing too. People are too focused on this being a job for cash instead of doing the gig for the greater good. Totally. And if we all started doing the gig for the greater good, I think the industry would expand and everyone would win. We don't have to be dishonest about it. Awesome. Mariana just joined from YouTube. So glad that you're here. That's cool. I want to really start to get to know who I pretty much know a lot of the Facebook followers, but the YouTube followers are kind of new. I'd like to start developing that community. John says people like to take the easy way and not do what is necessary. Shooting at a range in an easy way to convince many they are doing self-defense. Totally, totally true. And man, and we could go on, like we could sit here for days and days and days about that, right? But the important thing is to start, we believe, is to start to draw distinctions. Integrative defense strategies is taking, that's what we are, right? Integrative defense strategies. We're taking concepts, multiple disciplines that are interdependent upon one another, and we are infusing them all into one interdependent system of adaptable principles. Why adaptable principles? Because in violence, 2 and 2 doesn't always equal 4. Because in violence, the variables are random, they're unpredictable, and they are unrepeatable, right? And these things happen rapidly and violently and when and how we least expect it. So to teach something that is maladaptable and then to present it as if it were adaptable, I'm going to try to get rid of these, is a serious problem, and from my point of view, and it can end up costing people their life. We can have it both ways as long as we're calling it what it is, right? What would be, an example of how these things are implied, right? Again, I'm just using shooting for example right now, but you go to a marksmanship class and the name of the school or the company will somehow have the word defense or some iteration of the word defense in its name. Or the name of the class might be called defensive this or defensive that, when it's not defensive at all. Now we start to spill over into what we call slip and capture errors, right? Slip and capture errors are also known as training scars, right? Where we're burning specific habits and neurokinetic pathways into the cerebellum. And now we default, or there's a higher probability that we default to that under stress. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. And I get it. You know, it's simple and it's clean and it's easy to teach it that way and to talk about it that way. But the problem with that is that, like I just said, that's not how violent encounters happen. They aren't simple and clean and easy. They're messy. There are no absolutes. So at IDS, we don't like to offer absolute answers to contextually dependent questions. I refuse to do it. I just won't. Context dictates strategy. Context dictates strategy. Okay, Darcy, techniques don't work when you're old, broken, or sick as easily as it did when you learned it. Principles evolve, adapt to the moment. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Enjoy the day. Thank you, brother. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, it's all about adaptable principles. Larry says, not sure if it's just me, but you're cutting out real bad. Am I cutting out bad for others? Please let me know. Just playing, we're just experimenting with this. Scott Hills, how are you? Let me know if the stream somehow is cutting out badly. I'd like to know that because I'm just using this software for the very first time, and want to know what I'm doing here. Scott says I'm not cutting out. Lucas says hear you just fine. Okay, so it might just be you, Larry. Okay, so before I wrap this up here, okay, Riley says not cutting out. John says cutting out a little. Well, John, you're in the middle of nowhere. No wonder I'm cutting out for you. Kidding. Okay, going on about 20 minutes here. This goes really fast. Do you guys have any questions for me? Again, just testing this out. Drew, what's up? How are you? Drew said, Drew Creed, loud and clear. Good, glad to hear. Mariana says, I can hear you fine. Thank you. Jim says, can hear you just fine. What do you guys want to talk about? Do you guys have any questions for me? Anything at all, sort of industry related, training related, at all, training methodology, neuropsychology, anything at all related, directly, indirectly related, anything about myself, anything about IDS, any questions that you guys have for me before we wrap this test up. So far, it seems like the test is going okay. Guys, let me know how you think the test is going so far. John lives and trains in the woods. Amen, brother. Larry says 2 cans and a string internet. Lucas, what is one thing that you're most proud of doing, and one thing you wish you could start over? Those are broad questions. Lucas says new video stream is going great. Awesome, thank you. I'm gonna maybe just tie these questions into. I'll tie this into the training industry. I don't know if you're referring to this, Lucas, as a personal question or as a professional question. So we'll just keep it. Have no problem answering personal questions, but we'll keep this personal for now, or professional for now. What's the one thing you're most proud of doing, and the one thing that you wish you could start over? I would say that in this industry, the one thing that I feel like I'm the most proud of doing is with the help of others, is blazing a trail where there is no trail, is forging a concept that is outside of the current paradigm and mental model. Just to give an analogy of that you maybe have heard us talk about, we take a polydimensional, multidimensional approach to our training, where most people maybe view training as a circle or a square or a triangle. We instead view and experience it as, instead of a circle, we experience it as a sphere, or as a triangle, we experience it as a pyramid, or as a square, we experience it as a cube. It's polydimensional, and it tends to be far outside of what most people are accustomed to until they have the opportunity to experience it. And in order for that to happen, really, that training needs to be consistent. So that's why our model is different, where we're integrating the force multipliers with the hands-free skills, with all the other intermediate skills on a regular, ongoing basis, right? At IDS, we have classes that are ongoing throughout the week. Not just seminars, not just training events, but we take a martial arts model, a CrossFit sort of martial arts model, to where we have a training facility where people come and train with us on a regular basis throughout the week. So that would be something that I'm really proud of, that we've forged that. Maybe where really nobody's done it before, not that I'm aware of. One thing you wish you could start over. I don't really think too much. I think I'm still here. Okay, cut out a little bit. I really don't think too much about what I would have done differently. I always view that as feedback. I wish I would have started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu earlier. I started weapons-based grappling about 10 years ago. So that's one thing. Let's see. John asks, how close is the online training? We got to let it simmer, probably somewhere between 3 to 6 months before we have every I dotted and every T crossed. So thank you so much for asking. For those of you who don't know, very soon we will have virtual training available for you. Right now, we have it available for our instructors, for our affiliates, but now we're gearing virtual online training for the end user in a very innovative way, something I'm really super excited about. Lucas says, yes, doing something new and introducing it to the world, definitely something to be proud of. IDS is definitely like a science laboratory. That's true. That's what we are here. We're a lab. And Lucas, we're very honored to have you be a part of our lab. You know, all of our members here and everyone that's involved with IDS. We're always testing. And so thank you so much for being a part of that, Lucas. Mariana, how can we get out of the range and shoot, preferably outside? I'd like to combine strength training with shooting outside. I live in the city. I want to get out of the range. Okay, really great question. Another thing that we do here at IDS, in case you didn't know, we do a lot of integrating of strength and conditioning with it through elevated heart rates and other things that we do along with firearms and combatives training. We like to integrate all different types of modalities. My strong suggestion is if you don't have a CERT platform, buy Next Level Training, get one. Your autonomic nervous system doesn't know the difference between a simulated experience and a real one. Depending on what platform you're running. For example, I run a Glock 17, and that's for regular everyday carry, and that's also what I run on the CERT platform. The only difference would be a non-reciprocating slide, and you're not managing the impulse of the weapon. But you can do so much more with the CERT than you can with live fire. And you can do it anywhere. You can do it at home. And that's what our virtual training is really going to be about. So if you want to get off the range and you want to start working polydimensionally with real resistance and all the things, so many limitations to the range, especially right now with ammunition being so hard to come by and all the limitations we're dealing with in society, that would be the very first thing. Without going too in depth, that'd be the very first thing, Mariana, that I would say. Let me see here. I hope that helps. But I've been dead serious about this. If you ever want to dig into the science, let me know. I can go a long ways there. Jim McCarty asks, if you had 20 minutes to teach a newbie one thing for self-defense, what would you teach them? I would teach them the 5 stages of violent crime. I would teach them how to identify those 5 stages. I would teach them how to detect and deter those stages, when and how to depart away from stages that are evolving, and then a very simple concept, one very